Welcome to the Caribbean Edge. My name is Dawn Wilson. I'm here to invite you in for the discussion tonight on PTSD. We also want to recognize that June is Caribbean American Heritage Month. So we want to celebrate and recognize June for both the Caribbean American Heritage Month as well as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I do have joining me today the lovely Erika Land. Hi, Erika.
Hi.
I think she froze a little there. Let's see if she reconnects with us. I do know that Erika is a writer and author, and she served 6.5 years in the military. So let's see if she reconnects. We're going to switch over to Damien in the meantime. Hi, Damien. How are you?
Hey, Don. Hi, everybody.
Hi. So thank you both for your service. I know you served 22 years in the U.S. military as well.
Yes, I did. Still serving, actually, just in a reserve status now.
Okay. So tell us about you, Damien.
So I joined the Army right out of high school, and just decided I was going to make it a career. Been deployed about 6 times, different countries: Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Honduras, Iraq, Afghanistan. And I think we roll into the PTSD section of it. Most of my trauma is related to my last deployment of 2 years, which I did in Afghanistan. So I think we'll get more into that for sure, but just basically that's it.
And what's your background? Where are you from?
I'm from Kingston, Jamaica, originally. Then migrated to New York at age 15. Completed high school there and then joined the military.
Great. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. You have so much knowledge to share with us tonight. And Miss Erika, we lost you for a moment there. So welcome back. Okay. So tell us about you. Thank you for your service, 6.5 years. Tell us about you and where you're from.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm originally from Norfolk, Virginia, and I also joined the military right after high school. It was actually in 2002, after 9/11. I served 6.5 years with a 1-year deployment to Mosul, Iraq from 2005 to 2006.
Wow, after 9/11, I would think you would run and not join. You're a brave woman. Thank you. So what was it like for you as a female joining the military? What would you share to young women considering joining?
It wasn't bad for me joining. The only thing that I would probably encourage other females to do is to push for a job that you really want. I kind of just found myself settling for something. It was easier for me because I was in the medical field. It wasn't what I wanted to do in the medical field, but it was open at that time. And I just kind of took the job as a pharmacy technician. So
okay, thank you. What about you, Damien? Anything you'd give to young people considering joining? Any advice?
I think it's definitely a springboard. If you're not sure what exactly you want to do, especially if you come to the States as an immigrant, the military really opens a lot of doors for you if you be willing to take advantage of that stuff. So I think for me coming here, I mean, I was on a soccer scholarship. Unfortunately, I got in a car accident, a really bad car accident, and ended up joining. But for me, it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. So I think it's a very good springboard, and just some time to feel out. And also a lot of disciplines that you learn in the military transfer to, the civilian life. And for me also trying to go in business, a lot of things that I've learned, a lot of things I've been exposed to has made me more open to different things and different ideas and different cultures, which I think overall is creating a holistic person. And I think that's the plus of the military. So I would say definitely even if you're going to do 3 or 4 years, one term, it's definitely a good start, and you can figure it out from there.
Awesome, thank you. I can't thank you both enough. And Erika, what's PTSD?
Post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a disorder that really can affect anyone, whether you're in the military or not. If you've experienced a traumatic situation that you have lingering symptoms from that like don't go away after months, and you find yourself like trying to avoid the situation, or you're just having a lot of anxiety and are triggered all of the time, it could be post-traumatic stress disorder. And again, it doesn't just have to be from the military. It can be from being in an earthquake. Like I know Katrina happened here in the US, and a lot of people ended up with post-traumatic stress disorder. It can happen from sexual assaults. So you just have to be cognizant of what you're going through.
Yeah. Anything you would add to that, Damien?
I think Erika did a splendid job of explaining exactly what it is. But, just in layman's terms, it's just your body's reaction to trauma, and if it lasts over a month, that's when you officially get the diagnosis of PTSD. But it's, at the end of the day, we're still very primitive beings. And, your body's set up to protect you from something traumatic that's happened. So, for instance, you could be in a car accident. If you hear a car screech, your body's naturally going to freeze, because it's saying, the last time we heard tires screeching, we're in a car accident. So let me prepare you. So we do need some of that. It's just that when the body overcompensates for that, and it doesn't know when to read the signals correctly. So you end up reacting to situations that are not really traumatic. It's just more of a reliving of the traumatic experience you had before. So it's just your body's reaction to trauma.
Yeah. And, the reason I love these conversations as well is because we learn so much from each other through conversations. I'd rather talk to you guys than pick up a book and read about it, right? But you also need to read. One of the things I read today was that it's more common in women than it is men. I don't think people realize that. So I wanted to point that out early in the show, that as women, we're prone to this. And keep in mind, not everyone has PTSD. The majority of us overcome traumatic situations that occur with us. But then, like you've both mentioned, it has to do with how quickly you can recuperate and your mindset. And I also read genetically can contribute to us as well. So some of that is passed down through our genetics. So when I started digging into why, as far as women, a lot of women experience rape, child abuse. They're victims of domestic violence, especially when they're pregnant. And all those things can lead to PTSD. And I was thinking of someone recently that was in a car accident as I'm listening to you. And I read up on it, and it does say that, because we think you're in a car accident, we're thinking, oh my gosh, let's get medical attention. Let's fix all the broken bones, everything else. But how much do we think about the mental trauma that person went through? And I remember someone rear-ended me, which a lot of people can probably relate to. And then just that fear I went through for the next couple weeks. Like I was scared. I didn't want to go on the highway. I always looked behind me. And I'm able to overcome at some point. But if it was a serious accident, how many of us overcome it? So that's when you get into PTSD. So tell us about your journey, Erika, with it.
So I was diagnosed, I was in Iraq from 2005 to 2006, and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder in 2008. I had been going to therapy back and forth, and in the military, they put you through, I guess, a lot of tests to make sure of what it is. And I got hurt physically in Iraq also, so I was discharged in 2009. And so when I got out of the military, it was just going back into the world. I didn't have the restraints of the military. I didn't have the help of the military. It was kind of just like being on your own. And I had these issues that I didn't want to accept. Something was wrong with me. Like I knew deep down, you always know deep down something is wrong, but it's hard to admit that. And so I was just trying to fake the funk every day. But things just gradually got worse and got worse to the point where I was trying to commit suicide. And on one particular day, I guess because I had tried multiple ways, I sat down to actually write a suicide note. And when I started writing, I wrote this thing that actually was a poem. And that moment changed my life because it opened a window for me to be able to express myself in a way that I wasn't able to before. I wasn't able to sit and talk to someone like this and say, this is what is wrong, because I didn't want to traumatize anyone else the way that I had been. Like, I didn't want to tell the stories or say that this is wrong. I didn't want people looking at me as if something was wrong with me. And so I wrote that poem, and then I started writing more, and all of it just started flooding out. And I was like, okay, I really need to get help and start sharing this with people. And so I had been in therapy before for a while, like with the VA, but I was like missing appointments or not talking to anyone. It was like I was just showing up just to show up and taking all the medications, but I wasn't doing anything to really help myself. And so once I started writing, it was a different path for me to get everything off of my chest, to be able to process things outwardly. And it changed my life. And so now I just try to talk to people about post-traumatic stress disorder and everything about it any way that I can.
So I am so glad that you did not take your life. Let's start there. Looking back at that, are there anything that could have stopped you from getting there to that point? Like, did you have family around, support system around, anyone in the military, resources that you could have leaned on?
Mm-hmm. I did. And that's the thing about it. I was in a deep state of self-denial because I had every resource from the VA. My family was there. Like, I had a good support system. What was missing out of the equation was me saying, okay, something is wrong with you. You want to be here. You have to get help. You know, they say you can't help someone unless they want to help themselves. And that was a true case for me.
Okay, so what was the final thing that pulled you through to say, let me go get help? Just writing and
Yeah. I mean, because I tried to commit suicide in different ways. I don't know, but there was just something I think different in that day, because they say a lot of times people like do these cries for help. And on that day, I was just heavily depressed and crying. And when I wrote it and I went back and read it, I think I felt a little lighter. Like,
yeah.
it was just divine intervention. Because when I started writing, it was a confession letter where I was putting it out there. This is it. I wanted someone to know the true story of what I was feeling. And so there was no holds barred, but it helped keep me here. So I would just say it was a weight lifted.
Yeah, and I think people that write can certainly relate to you. I actually had this conversation, surprisingly, with one of my girlfriends yesterday, and I was telling her when I sat down and wrote about my childhood trauma, I started crying, and it was like a release. So I think as you speak, people are going to be able to relate to that and connect to it, because it does. You're putting it, it's a sad moment that you're going through, and the tears just don't stop. So yes, people can relate to that. Thank you so much, Erika.
Thank you.
Damien.
So I think for me, there were several barriers for me. One being, I've been to combat a couple times before, and saw things. But also, to be honest, growing up in Jamaica, we see stuff that can be a cause of PTSD, and just the way of life, to be honest. So I think for me, it wasn't so much of an issue until my last deployment, I think. And I think the reason for that was, it was probably my most, I saw the most combat in Afghanistan, but also being there for 2 years. I think that was really, I think I overdid it a little bit. The average tour is about 9 months. And, because of, unfortunate situations, I ended up being there. I got injured and decided to stay an additional year because there's no replacement. So I ended up staying there for an additional 11 months. And I was having issues going into the second tour. I was having difficulty sleeping. I would take, I was having really bad headaches because I was in an explosion where a building caved in on me. So I was having really severe headaches. So I was taking, a lot of medication just to deal with the pain from the headaches and backaches, but also to sleep because I couldn't sleep at night. So I would take Tylenol and stuff like that to sleep. So I just, I'm from a culture where, you just suck it up and drive on. You just get the mission done, and that's what I was doing until I came back. I got injured again, and I came back. I stopped over in Germany for a while, but I still wasn't focused on the mental side of it. I was more focused on the physical, and just saying, hey, I just want to get patched up and go back out again. And I noticed that I wasn't sleeping at all. I definitely could not sleep. My normal routine would be about 2 hours of sleep per day. I literally go to sleep around 4 to 6, anywhere from 3 to 6 is when I would sleep. I'll get back up and I'll just continue the day. Sometimes I would go out. Sometimes I wouldn't go out. Sometimes I'll be in the room for a week, just grabbing food, coming back. And I definitely noticed that something was off. But I think for me, when I decided to get help, I was on a drive back from New York. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. And, normally you're speeding and cars would follow you. So you get the ticket, you're the first car. So they follow you. And one of the issues I had in Afghanistan was, where they will trail you and then also drive the vehicle into your vehicle to disable your vehicle, also to cause harm. So I definitely had some trauma from that. And I remember stopping on the highway, in the middle of the highway, I-95. I stopped in the middle of the highway and was getting out of my car to approach the guy that was following me. And at that point, I knew, okay, something's definitely not right. My heart was racing. I was very irate, very angry. And I said, you know what? I need to get help. So that's when I started to actually reach out. I didn't have to go through the VA, actually. I was still in the Army. So I just reached out to the hospital there at Walter Reed and started the services. And for me, it was hard at first. One, coming from a combat arms background, a very macho part of the Army. So that was the first barrier. Second, just being Black. When I went to a lot of these meetings, I was probably, the only African American in there. and also having the Caribbean culture. So there were several barriers for me, but the biggest thing for me, I'm a father, and I know I definitely wanted to be better for my kids, and so that was my driving force to really seek the help, and I'm here today as because of that.
Thank you. I can't even imagine what you went through. The building collapsing on you alone is traumatic and everything else. So I know people can relate, and rightly so, that Caribbean culture that we have of suck it up or man up, is so hard on us. So the importance of sharing these stories and conversations, so parents that are listening hopefully can pay better attention and change those ways. We make excuses for past generations too. I remember like my dad saying to me, you have nothing to complain about. You should see my life, what my life is like. So at what point do you break those cycles and love your kids and make sure that they have that support system? I'm so glad, Erika, that you had a support system around you. And still yet you had your trauma to deal with. Do you think, because for you, Damien, I know you mentioned that you couldn't sleep a lot and you did medication. Do you think the medication helped?
I am.
Sorry.
I think the problem at the time with one of the problem with the Iraqi and Afghanistan war is that we're still trying to figure out PTSD and what works for different individuals. So I think they just did a blast of different medications sometimes, and you try it for 3 months and then you try one for 4 months, and so I definitely have my reservations when it comes to the treatment and medication. But I think it has to be a hybrid of your own efforts along with the medication, knowing your own body and knowing what works for you. But I think somewhat it helps, but I don't think it's the cure all for PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. And we know with our culture as well,
yes,
we are not medication driven.
Herbs.
We want the natural remedies. So yeah, we have a lot culturally that builds us as beautiful, strong people, but also being aware of them helps us with our decisions and choices as well. Erika, what about you as far as medication?
Mm-hmm. I don't deter people away from medication because different things work for different people, and you should consult your doctor. But for me, the medication did not work for years. There are other methods, like the VA actually had a writing program. And I'm talking like, when did I do that program? Maybe 2016-ish. And I got out in 2009 for me to actually find that program. And that's where I made the most progress. Because I'm a writer. And so getting in that and being able to write helped. The medication did not help. I was just on this roller coaster for a very long time, which is why I try to push people towards like art therapies and finding like some kind of like physical way to get that out, even writing being physical. Because I like to be more in touch with what is going on in my body, and medications mask a lot. And I worked in the pharmacy, and so you take one and then you can't always distinguish, is this a side effect from the medication or is this something that is going on with my body?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah, and so everyone's saying hello to you guys and thanks for sharing your story. So thank you everyone that's joined, and if you have a question for our guests, please post it in the chat and I'll read it for them. And what were you saying,
just
Damien?
to piggyback off what Erika said. So for me, I was having really bad headaches, and they would give me, medication for sleep and also for the headaches. But sometimes those medications would clash.
Yes.
So you found out that, one medication that's for sleep causes headaches, but I have headaches. So how do you do that? So I'm taking this medication for 3-4 months and my headaches are getting worse, only to find out that, the medication for sleep is a cause of the headache. It's a side effect from that medication. So it's very tricky, and getting it right, you could end up taking 30,
20.
25, different pills per day. And that's just crazy, and the toxicity of that in your body doesn't help when you're trying to recover and trying to get a mental um, stability as well. So it's very tricky. It's a tough balance sometimes.
Yeah. I think I was like, I have to come off these medications when I realized I was on uppers and downers
Yeah.
and and that's just for the mental health. We're not talking about the physical ailments. Like, I was like, I'm literally on uppers, downers, and then in the middle of the day, stuff to smooth it out. Like, yeah, it was a lot, and you can't get a hold of your emotions or what's going
Yeah.
on. At least I couldn't. So,
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
from what I saw, I was very, very skeptic. A lot of my friends who were very great soldiers, great human beings as well. Unfortunately, some of them committed suicide. But I know it had a lot to do with the medication. So I was trying to be as the minimum amount of meds that I could have been on, because I noticed when you're in pain and when you're hurting and anything gives you that relief, and you tend to abuse it because it feels so good to be pain free, or
mhm.
somewhat normal again. And sometimes when you abuse that, it leads to other issues. And I saw that a lot. So I was just very skeptic and very aware, very cognizant of just trying to manage my own medication, trying to do different things, trying to find other avenues, other coping mechanisms to deal with it.
Mhm.
So tell us about what it was like to get diagnosed and who diagnosed you. What did they say to you? What questions did they ask?
Erica, you want to go first, or you want to?
I don't even know if I can, because it's a lot of long questionnaires that they ask, because it was in the military, and so every time you go, you have to fill out like a questionnaire. And for me, I was so scatterbrained, things were just all over the place that I don't even know what some stuff went with what and what did not. But I do know that there were a lot of tests and just sitting down, talking to people, answering all the questions, um, and really evaluating the symptoms, like, and ruling other things out that may be wrong. So, did I have a traumatic brain injury? No. Okay. Because the symptoms overlap so much when it comes to mental health that it's like, are you bipolar? Do you have all of these other things going on? It's ruling a bunch of things out to get to the one. But as far as like knowing some of the symptoms, like I would um just try to like avoid certain situations that reminded me of what was going on, or I developed like OCD things, like incessantly like washing my hands, which I had never done before, but it's because of like some of the traumas that I experienced over there, of like just always trying to like scrub it away because I worked in the medical field. um and then it's like just waking up in the middle of the night, um because I think I'm getting shot at or because of bombs landing. Like one night, I was in the house, and in Maryland, I lived in like a 3-story house, and the fire alarm went off. And I was like from upstairs, downstairs in the basement with my sister, gathering them up to get them like out of the house because I thought we were being like bombed, or like being pulled over by the police. And just the stress of that, I would disassociate, and I have no idea what like happened until like, it's like I'm in the car, the next minute I'm on the curb in handcuffs. I don't really know what happened in between there. Or, you know, because I worked in the medical field, we'd have a lot of helicopters come and go with patients. So anytime I would hear like a helicopter, like I would have a panic attack, because it's like I'm expecting, you know, injured people to come in, or having to send away deceased soldiers. And it was just, yeah, just all of those things, and them evaluating it, and me actually like talking about it, got to my diagnosis. It took piecing it together. So in 2008, like when I was diagnosed, I guess it was them piecing all of that together and, you know, ruling things out. But then being able to talk about it later on is where it's like, now I can relay this to you, this way.
Wow. I just want to say, listening to you, you're phenomenal. I mean, you're phenomenal for all the people that you helped, all the lives that you saved. And, you know, just thank you. And I'm sorry that you had to go through it. And I don't know why I'm getting teary-eyed just looking to you again.
Me too. Me too.
You too, right? Okay,
Okay,
thank you. I'm not saying the same thing.
I don't want to, like, that was one of my things. Now I'm okay, but I didn't want to affect anyone that way, which is why I kind of like kept
No,
it.
it's beautiful. It is amazing to speak to such a phenomenal woman that has done what you've done to people and save lives and patch them back together. I'm not saying the right words right now because I'm emotional listening to you talk about the things that you did over there. So just thank you. Thank you. Damien. When were you diagnosed and what did you go through? And if you want to say anything about Erika, you should feel free.
No, Erika, you know, I have the utmost respect for especially for female veterans. I think, you know, whilst we are able to come back, and you know, when I came back, I was able to just deal with myself. Lucky I have a great support team with my sisters and family. So I was able to just focus on me and just try to work. Sometimes it's very hard, you know, as for female veterans, because they come back to a life where everybody's looking to mommy, you know, this maternal being is there. So I know it's sometimes it can be much more to deal with on top of what they're going through. So I have the utmost respect and the utmost respect for you, Erika, as well. So thank you for sharing. And, you know, the Battle Buddy system is here, you know, so glad to have you on as well. I think for me, it was a myriad of things for me. I think when I first started down the path of being diagnosed was definitely the nightmares. I was having really bad nightmares where I would wake up in sweats and, you know, checking the doors. At a certain point, I couldn't go to sleep if I didn't have a gun beside me because, you know, one of my biggest traumas is being, we got overran, our camp got overran, and we got a couple of people that lost their lives. So I felt at a point for like 6 months, I had to have some form of weapon, something beside me to feel at peace to sleep. But I would have these very, you know, vivid dreams, you know, and just recalling different flashbacks throughout the day. And just being very angry as well. You know, when you go from being in a war zone for 2 years where your only resolution is you know, unfortunate, is to kill, right? And you come back and the simplest thing, somebody cuts you off in traffic, your mind is still wired to, you know. So I didn't drive for a while. I had a couple bad experiences, and you know, I just decided I wasn't going to drive for about 4 months. But it was hard to rewire that, and it's hard to come out of that without excessive work. So for me, it was just, you know, just getting, and I'm normally a very calm demeanor, you know, very, very jovial, you know, very calm. And when I saw, you know, pretty much every interaction, you know, I wanted to go to the extent of where, you know, I wanted to do severe harm. And I know that wasn't me, you know, that was me surviving and trying to still think I'm in Afghanistan. So I try to work on that. I try to work on sleep. But the problem with me was complex. I had a TBI from the head injury. So they weren't sure if, if my memory loss was coming from the brain injury or was it coming from PTSD. They share the same symptoms. So I had to work through the TBI and also work through the PTSD in tandem. And, so that was a journey. But I think eventually they had me in group therapy, but I went to group therapy, and the bad thing about group therapy is that people are there for different reasons. Some people are there because they lost their cat, and somebody's there because, they have a drinking problem. I had an issue with war. And so the group therapy wasn't working for me. I needed to be around people who have the same issue. So once I got to that group where I could talk openly to people who spoke the same language and had the same experiences, then I was, that's when my diagnosis came, and I actually started tackling it from there. So it took me about a year and a half to really work through the weeds and get there.
Mm-hmm. Can't even imagine, Damien, can't. Tell me about your family or your friends that are around you while you're going through this transition. What helped you? What are probably some of the wrong things we should say to someone going through this?
I think the worst thing you could say to somebody is if you're not a professional, is try to, at one, people always ask, have you ever killed anybody? That's the worst thing you could ever ask. And two, just if you're not a professional, they'll tell you eventually, they'll share what they want to share. Because to me, for instance, I know some things that I've done I'm probably not proud of, and I don't want to share that with, somebody who hasn't done something similar. And there's still a part of PTSD is guilt and shame, but it is what it is sometimes. So I think sharing that with people who are not, it's just like a police officer talking to a police officer or a teacher talking to a teacher. Sometimes you just feel like, okay, I can't share this with anybody. And so you feel alone unless you're with your fellow comrades. And, I think having family and friends who didn't push the issue, they just got to push me in the right direction to get help, but not the more of the, oh, what happened, or tell me this, or why are you doing this, but pushing me in the right direction. So I have two amazing sisters who were pretty much my lifeline throughout my journey. So I have a daughter. I was having her in the States kind of by myself. Her mom is in Jamaica. And so they just stepped up and helped me in that situation. And just overall, just rocks for me. So I was very lucky. As I said, I had time to go focus on me, work on me, and that's probably the reason why I'm here today.
Thanks, and thanks for your support system around you. I think what I'm hearing is just listening and just being there for you really helped you as well, and not the questions to rehash the things, because in your own time, you're gonna confide in whoever you need to confide in as well. I tell you, listening to you, the strength of a man comes to mind. One, just going through it, and it seems like you did a lot of personal or self-evaluations of yourself to know you both did, something's wrong. I need to figure out what it is. And then you sought that professional help to help you get there. A lot of us ignore a lot of things that are going on with us, including just getting regular medical checkups as well. So I'm glad you're able to, like you said, Damien, you stopped driving. While a lot of people would continue, you recognize I guess we call it road rage. But you recognize that this is not me, and I need to figure out what it is. So thank you for your strength as a man. A lot of us will experience PTSD, and surprisingly, because I don't think about it on a daily basis like most people don't. And so I read today about life-threatening illnesses. So medical conditions associated with an increased risk of PTSD include cancer, heart attack, stroke, and 22% of cancer survivors present with lifelong PTSD-like symptoms. So, you know, we all know someone that has cancer or has had a stroke or something critical. And it's just, as I talk about this and read about it more, I'm like, wow, we really need to pay attention to our family and friends and what they're going through on a mental level, not just the physical level that they're having surgery and everything else. So if you're listening to this program, it's so critical for you to share it because it's important to us. I want to talk to you, Damien, a little bit about what you're doing in my beautiful country of Jamaica, your plans to share. Please share with us.
Thank you. So as we're saying, you know, going through treatment, at one point, I think I literally I was on 28 different medications and not seeing any improvement at all. And these were daily medications. And I just, you know, I was like, this can't be it. So I came to Jamaica, I took a break, came to Jamaica, and this is about 8 months into coming back from Afghanistan. And I was with a bunch of friends and we had rented a villa in the Grill. And that was the first night I got sleep. I slept for 5 hours. I slept on the beach. Mosquitoes was biting me. I didn't care. I was out. And that was the first time I slept in about, literally say in about 2 years, you know. That's the first I got 5 hours sleep. And the sun literally came up on me on the seaside. And I was like, this is it. This is where I need to be. So every chance I ran to Jamaica, and that has been my saving grace. Just, you know, the food, the people, you know, I have really close friends here who they won't let you be a victim. You know, they're ignorant to PTSD, which is a good thing in this case, because you can't be here and be like, hey, I'm not going outside today, or I'm not, it's not going to fly. It's not going to go over. So just being in Jamaica and getting the sunshine, you know, vitamin D is very essential in the care for PTSD. And just being around island people, you know, and getting the natural resources of the land, the food, the music, the vibe, has helped me tremendously. So with you know, whatever I saved in Afghanistan, I bought a villa here, and I said, how can I also help others who don't have the luxury of coming to Jamaica and who have to stay in a hotel? And that's when I came up with the Damian Dixon Foundation. And basically what it is just bringing wounded veterans here to Jamaica, showing them an alternative to medication. So yoga, meditation, just walks, just peer support, and just different foods that they can eat, different herbs, you know, and just, you know, exposing them to a different viewpoint of healing. And that's what the Damian Dixon Foundation is about. Subtitle Island Heal.
I'm so proud of you.
And you're speaking.
Definitely. So we were going to do our first trip in May. We've been doing it informally, but unfortunately COVID came in. So we're just waiting for everything to open back up. That's why I'm here in Jamaica working on it extensively. And as soon as everything open back up, we'll be ready to go.
Cool. So Erika and the Caribbean Edge will be there.
Yeah,
definitely.
As you speak with such love of our homeland, I mean, anyone watching this and has been to Jamaica knows the beauty of the people, the food, the culture, everything that you so eloquently described about it. So I know you will be successful, but most important is what you're doing to give back to others that are going through that. And there are no words for that. So thank you, because you're doing it from your heart as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And most island people don't believe in the medication, as we mentioned. These natural remedies of falling asleep on the beach and not being bitten by a mosquito. I'll bring the mosquito net. We certainly help, and we can't wait to see it because we want to showcase it to everyone. It's such a good concept. And like I said, you'll be helping so many people to find alternatives. And I know Erika that you mentioned, writing is one of your ways of, de-stressing, so to speak, and getting out, which a lot of people can relate to, including myself. So for you, tell us what you're doing.
Well, I put PTSD and Me and writing together. I have a stage play called PTSD and Me, that came from me writing that very first poem. And then so I became a 21st century war poet, where I started writing about those war experiences that I've had and that other people adjacent to me have had. And I put them into a stage play. And so now I'm touring the country. I made it to Off Broadway up in New York. Hopefully, I'll sell enough tickets to actually get on Broadway.
Amazing.
Thank
That's
you. But it's an educational show. I am really honest about things that happened. Um, because I need people to see. I want people to know what it's like on the day to day, because we talk about these things, but if I say, oh yeah, I have PTSD, you don't really know what that looks like. You don't really know the pulling over in the middle of the interstate, the panic attacks, the running and going into a closet when firecrackers go off. Like you don't really know those things. So I try to um, just tell people about it. And along the way, I'm educating them about exactly what PTSD is and what it looks like, and offering resources. So most of the time, I'll have a psychologist there to actually talk about it, to give that more clinical perspective, because I am not a psychologist. um, but just to, and people can ask questions. Um, yeah, and it's just, I just say art helped. So I write books, I do music, I perform. I tell people, if you think someone may have PTSD or just anything that they're going through where they stay locked up in their room for days, try to bring them out. Find something that they're into. If they like fixing cars, then just find an old engine or an old car and just sit out there with them and talk and work on it. It doesn't have to be about their trauma. It's just gearing them towards something that they like to do that might make them happy. If it's playing basketball, just going on a walk. Cutting grass can be therapeutic. So I just say, just try to do something to get them into a little bit of a happier place. And then maybe, you keep doing that, you can open the door to say, hey, maybe we can go talk to someone about what's going on. How do you feel about that? And if they're resistant, just try to be there. Like, you don't really have to do much, but just show up for them and let them know that they are not alone.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not alone.
If I could piggyback on what Erika said, we lose about 18 to 20 veterans a day, from suicide. And it's actually, I think the number is actually going up. And Erika, I think you made a great point. Just get them out, and if you're listening to this and you have PTSD, just get out, because one day turns to 2 days, 2 days turns to 3, and then a week, and then a month, and before you know it, it's just a gaping hole. So don't ask about the trauma, just get them out and just have them be normal, just talk to them, just get them into whatever they like, or invite them to something new as well, but just get them out and then just be there, just be supportive. And then by doing that, you could get them the help they deserve.
Yeah. And Erika, we need you to share your book with us and your poems with us as well.
So this is actually the play PTSD and Me. So that stage play was actually published, so you can read it if you are not able to come and watch it. And so I have a website. It's Pam, Pam, and then Tix. So Pamtix. So it's PTSD and Me tickets. But yeah, it's just an amazing thing to be in a place to be able to share my story in a positive, conducive way. You know, and in the play, I tell people to ask other people for help, right? So a lot of times we don't say anything or we're like, nah, it's not possible to do that. You just have to ask. So for instance, if you do have a friend who likes to work on cars, right? You might not have a car in your backyard, but there might be like an auction that sells cars somewhere. There might be a mechanic shop that has one in the back, and you say, "Hey, I have a veteran friend who's really suffering right now. Can we just tinker on a car in the back? You know, it's been sitting there for 15 years. Just tinker on it. You know, you never know, but you can just ask small business owners, big business owners, you know, just we can't always accept a no or expect a no. Don't
Yeah,
expect a no.
absolutely. So, unexpected death of a loved one. Sudden unexpected death of a loved one is the most common traumatic event type reported in cross-national studies.
Yeah.
The majority of people who experience this type of event will not develop PTSD. An analyst from the World Mental Health Survey found a 5.2% risk of developing PTSD after learning of the unexpected death of a loved one. So I know with COVID-19, we've seen a lot of deaths. We hear about it on a daily basis. And once again, everyone's traumatic experience is so different. And what will trigger for someone may not trigger for someone else. And it's about paying attention to your loved ones that are going through something critical and being there for them, even if it's just to sit and listen. So I want to wrap up with both of you and ask you if there's anything else you want to share that we haven't touched on tonight. Damien, how about you?
I just want to say, in our community, well, I'm speaking to the men right now. You know, being socialized to be tough and suck it up, you know, takes away from us being the best men for our families. And it takes a lot of strength, takes a lot of courage to seek help, you know, and it doesn't have to be, I'm not talking about, you know, military stuff, or just get your mental state right. Because I think when your mental state is right, there's so much you can accomplish. There's so much you could give back. There's so much you can teach. And but just overall, just to everybody, um, we need to do better in our community as far as addressing mental health. I think a lot of our issues stem from not addressing it. A lot of the anger that we have towards each other stem from that. A lot of the self-esteem issues we have come from not addressing it. And I'm actually grateful. I wouldn't change anything. Going through and having PTSD and getting counseling has opened up different boxes that I need to tap in. And I've worked on them, and it's still a work in progress, but I've seen a lot of growth, and I've seen a lot of results from that growth. So I would just challenge anybody, if you're having any type of, it could be sexual assault, it could be, you know, any type of trauma, just seek help, you know, and it doesn't have to be, there's so many different resources there. You know, reach out to me, Damian Dixon 5, Dixon Damien 5 at Gmail. You know, my number, I'll provide my number if you need it, but just reach out to somebody. And if you're one of the lucky, you know, persons to not have any issues, see somebody and know the signs of depression and PTSD, and reach out to somebody and help. Each one builds one. So, and Dawn, thank you so much for having me on. Erika, it's a pleasure to share the platform with you. We definitely have to share our details after. I'm definitely looking to see you in Jamaica.
Yes, we'll share mango too.
But yeah, definitely. We get some mangoes sorted out. But no, just overall, let's do better in our community. Let's do better for our families. Let's do better for ourselves.
Yeah, and we want to recognize and thank all our fallen heroes, whether they did it on the war zone or when they returned home. due to PTSD or other causes. So we want to thank everyone for their military service and for what you're doing beyond that, you know, in your own lives as well. And Miss Erika.
I do want to share one thing that I learned, and this is for people that have PTSD and have gotten better. You can be re-triggered. And like you were talking about the deaths, I was re-triggered by my dad passing away from cancer and having that same feeling of not being able to help him that I had with patients in Iraq. And so it kind of started sending me down that pathway again. So just be aware of that fact. And I just, like Damien, encourage everyone to just learn about different symptoms so that we can help each other. We just need to, you know, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. We just all need to come together and help each other in some way or fashion. There's a lot of divides in the world right now that don't need to exist. We're all here to make the world a better place. And we do that by staying educated and educating each other.
Thank you. Wow, wow, wow. Two phenomenal people that we can't thank enough. It's truly an honor to meet you both. And for everyone that tuned in tonight, please remember to share this episode, and thank you for tuning in. And Michelle Hussein, who works diligently behind the scenes, and myself, Dawn Wilson, just can't thank you enough. I'm truly honored. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Have an amazing week, guys.
Bye.
Same to you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.